It's Tina Lundquist-Faust, co-president of Houston PetSet with...
And Tama Lundquist, I was going to say Lundquist-Faust, co-president of Houston PetSet.
And this is Conversations for the Animals. We're here today with Keri and Carlos from Team Feral. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we're so glad you're here. So I guess start by telling us what Team Feral is and what it is that you guys do.
You want to take that one? Or
Well, Team Feral.
Go ahead.
We are a cat-only rescuer. We focus on cats, but our main mission is to reduce the homeless cat population in Houston. We do that through pulling from shelters, pulling from the euthanasia list. We do that through TNR, which is trap, neuter, return in the community. We also transport animals out of Houston to other states that don't have the overwhelming pet population issues that we do here in Houston.
Great. And how long have you been in Houston?
That's an interesting question. So I joined Team Feral in 2020, but I started working with them when I was volunteering with Best Friends in 2019. I believe they've been around a couple of years maybe before that. Yeah, I mean, it's just like with everything, like people get together, they like to work together, and that's how we started.
Yeah, kind of formed organically.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
which is what happens a lot in animal welfare.
Yeah, we're a small rescue, but like as we always joke around, we're like small but mighty.
Yeah.
Yes.
So many of us small but mighty organizations. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, what you're doing is so important because we know there are so many cats, feral cats, owned cats, somewhere in between on the streets of Houston. And they are not doing well out there. They're suffering. And so, like you said, we need to reduce the populations drastically in the city. But also we need to take care of the ones that are out there.
Yes.
That's
and
correct. Yeah, and
our goal.
that's part of the reason that we started doing the transport, just because unfortunately, like, you can get cats adopted here, but then they somehow, like, sometimes they end up in the street again. So we when I was volunteering in 2018 at BARC, that's kind of how I started in rescue. My wife and I, Pam, started working on the youth list, and then we just saw like the overwhelming need of helping animals especially from BARC. And so we started looking for some partnerships in Minnesota. And so when we were with Best Friends, we did like a full year of transports with dogs and cats, and just by the end of 2019 we kind of like worked with Team Feral more, but I mean, it's just the need that we have here is just ridiculous.
So great. I know. So now you just do feral cats, is that, or just cats? I'm sorry.
We just do cats. So I think Carlos and I both have a similar story. Like, we started in rescue in general, and we did both dogs and cats. But then as we saw the need with cats being so great, because there's less cat-focused organizations, cats tend to get a little less attention. I think we all we gravitated to where the need was greatest. And so Team Feral focuses on our biggest effort this year, I believe, is our TNR, which is the trap, neuter, return of the community cats. And I use the term community cats. You said kind of there's the strays and the friendly strays to the completely feral cats that are in the community. And our pet population is so out of control over here that we're never going to adopt our way out of this.
Right.
We have to get boots on the ground and intervene before these kittens are born. And we have to take care of the feral cats and getting them fixed. And we have to take care of those community cats, as well as we're focusing on those adoptions and getting them transported out of Houston. There's just not enough homes. There's just not enough people to take care of the animals here.
So for people that don't know what TNR is, can you explain that? Because some of our listeners might not know what TNR stands for.
Certainly.
So TNR is like trap, neuter, release. And basically what it means is that some of these cats might not be like completely friendly. So you are not going to be able to adopt them out, or... And so essentially what happens is that the more, I'm just going to explain it with how we started doing like cat rescue in Houston. So my wife and I moved into an apartment. So we moved in, and this was in 2014. There was 3 kittens that were roaming on the street. And so someone said, oh, let's just feed them. And they started feeding them. So all of a sudden, like a year later, there was 10. And then the next year there was like 16 cats. So my wife and I were feeding these cats, and so it got to a point where we're like actually feeding more animals in our balcony than the animals that we actually have.
Mhm.
So we needed to do something, and that's how we started doing research about TNR. And so basically what it means is like either you take them to shelters or to rescue organizations or to any vet that can spay and neuter, and then you keep the cat overnight for just to do the recovery after they do the surgery, and then just put them back. And so a lot of people think it's a better solution to trap the cats and place them somewhere else, but then there's many studies that they have done many organizations that they call the vacuum effect. So if let's say you take these 10 cats out of your community and then you place them somewhere else and you just kind of got rid of the problem, the matter of fact is more cats are gonna come in. And so it's better to have those cats spay and neuter, return them to the colony. They are aware of where to find the food sources, and so they are going to prevent from other cats coming into the colony. So that way you like stabilize those communities.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Mhm.
I've heard that too, that they have kind of like their cliques or their tribes, and lots of times you can't introduce sometimes don't even accept new tribe members, and they have their like kind of set populations, and it's hard to mix them.
Mhm.
There was a gentleman that was a wildlife biologist that came into our neighborhood, and he was working with some stray wild animals, and he told me that he said you can't just you think you can just drop them anywhere and they'll integrate, and they don't.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They have to go back to where
Mhm.
where you found them. Also, some of those cats have, like you, were feeding them. So they kind of become dependent on that. So
Mhm.
they're kind of half stray, feral, half not. And
Yeah.
so you give them that, and then you put them in another neighborhood. All of a sudden, they don't know their way around. So I think it's if you're going to release them back, it's very important to release them exactly where you got them.
That
Yeah,
is-
and not
that is
just in the
correct.
zip code.
Not just
No.
the zip
Yeah,
code.
yeah.
No, so we know some groups.
The cats need to go back to exactly where they
Exactly.
were trapped, because they, like you said, they do become dependent on their feeders.
Yes.
And that also maintains the idea of what we're thinking of in the area of the population
Yeah.
stability. And so we won't have other cats come in as long as we're putting those there.
How do you think the cats are doing? You know, they are a domesticated animal, just like dogs are. We had a wildlife biologist a couple weeks ago, or a wildlife person. And, you know, wildlife is so different. I think we categorize things as wildlife and then, what's that farming term?
Agricultural.
Agricultural. Can we edit that, please? So you have wildlife, agricultural, and then the domesticated animals. And cats are considered domesticated. How are they doing on the streets, even if they are feral?
I think it varies dramatically,
Yes,
especially here in Houston.
because just from the shelter, like working at BARC or like volunteering at BARC, you can see cats that they tend to be marked as stressed, and then you see them like you see the plea that comes out and say like it might do well in the house, it might not do well in the house. So many times, whenever we have taken cats to foster, we realize that like they're like very stressed, and they after a few days they settle down, and then their personality starts coming out. And we have seen the other way where they are just like climb up the walls like feral cats. And so I think it's a matter that's why it was so important for us to have like those adoption outcomes, because as Keri mentioned, that whenever we are doing TNR, there's many times that we find those friendly cats that it's kind of we don't want to put them back on the street if they don't have to, right?
Mhm.
And then of course you have the feral cats that even if you wanted to acclimate them or to bring them into a home, like it's just
There's
not.
no way. Yeah.
And I mean, the cats face so many challenges on, on the streets of Houston. I mean, we're dealing with, I can't tell you how many times I get a day of posts a day about our messages regarding this cat was attacked by a dog.
Yeah.
And we all know that the homeless pet population is both cats and dogs.
Right.
It is worse, we think, with cats. We say like for every stray dog you see, expect 15 cats in that condition, because cats hide. They aren't out running the streets.
Right.
People aren't necessarily afraid of them.
Right.
But you know, they face the same challenges: starvation, people hurting them, cars being attacked by other animals,
Yeah.
being attacked by wildlife, things like that. And
Disease,
yes,
Yes.
injuries,
Mhm.
being
very
shot.
much so.
Yes.
And that's a very good point. And it seems odd to say being shot, but we I have a huge passion, and so does Team Feral, with the outreach events, and that kind of starts with our TNR. But some of the more rural communities surrounding Houston don't have the resources that we have. They don't have those spay neuter events. They don't have shelters where there are places for cats to go.
Right.
I'm thinking of one specific county north of here that doesn't have a place to take cats.
Right.
Wow.
And they literally are just left on the street to die. So it's just, these horrible things can happen. And you say being shot, and we've had so many of these animals come in because somebody couldn't take the animal where it could go, and they are injured and hurt like
Yeah.
that.
Right.
Yes.
I know. We both have dogs that have buckshot in them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, it
Right?
I can't believe the number of dogs that we pick up on the streets or that we know of. And once you take them in for x-rays, they're filled with buckshot. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's in the city where we
Yes.
find them. So this is not just happening in rural communities.
That's true.
It's happening. Houston is, the topography here contributes so much
Mhm.
to this stray crisis that we have for dogs and cats.
Yes.
Because the animals can hide in these little rural pockets, but B, people get away with a lot. If you shoot a gun if you shoot a dog in downtown San Fran or downtown New York, people are going to know about
Mhm.
it. But you
Yeah.
do it here in Houston with all these. It's kind of commonplace, I think, for people
Yes.
to hear gunshots. Unfortunately, so
Mhm.
It also speaks to how people feel about the animals.
Mhm.
And, it doesn't mean that they necessarily hate the animals, but they could be afraid. They could be afraid for their children. They could be sick of it. They're not like squirrels. They're domesticated animals, and I'm not excusing them. I'm just saying if we had fewer animals on the streets, we would have fewer animals being shot
Right.
at, because
Yes.
people are just tired of it, and they're tired of being afraid of the animals. And it's something our city has to address at some point. Our city leaders, I should say. There's a lot of city and county people doing a lot, and nonprofits, but it's something our leaders need to take stock of, because it is a quality of life issue, as you
Yes.
well know.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So you guys are doing TNR events. How often do you do those, and how many do you do in like a day or a weekend or?
So we just started this year to do it like more like I'm gonna call it like bulk, like those bigger events. Before we were doing like if someone will reach out and say, "Hey, I have this cat that I want to bring," so of course we will like sponsor that. But now we're trying to be like more targeted and trying to do those events. So we started, I think, so we are doing them every month, and so we are partnering with Houston Spay and Neuter. And I believe the first one we did like 60 something, and that was like, so the next one that we're gonna have this Sunday is the sixth one, and that one we're targeting like again like 90, 100. So
Wow.
In
the
a
last one
day.
we did, yeah.
In a day.
And I want to wave our flag a little bit. I think Houston Pet Set has partnered with
Yes,
you too, right?
you guys have made
Yes.
made this entirely possible. I cannot tell you.
I wasn't looking for that.
No,
but-
Yeah.
I was like, no, we are so
Grateful.
grateful, thankful, but the impact we are having right now, and once a month bringing in 60 was our lowest day,
Yes.
and our most recent event, getting that many spay neuters in a day is amazing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's overwhelming in the impact that we can make in the pet population. And I mean, we have trappers from all over areas that don't have these services as well, and it's amazing.
Well, where do
When
the
you-
cats? Oh, go ahead.
60 cats can
Yeah.
produce millions,
Yes.
Oh,
mil-
yes.
if not tens of cat. That number of growth exponentially is almost hard to get your mind around. So
Yep.
60 cats
Mhm.
sounds like a lot, especially when you're thinking of surgeries. 60 surgeries in a day is a lot, but when you think of what you're stopping and what you're preventing from
Mhm.
happening on the
Mhm.
streets, it's really great work. So
Yeah.
kudos to you.
No, and I really want to call out like everybody, just like Keri
Yeah.
was mentioning. Just because it says Team Feral is doing the event, it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that we are doing it by ourselves. Like you said, Houston Pet Set is contributing.
Mhm.
Houston Spay and Neuter is contributing, volunteering from the clinic, all the trappers,
Yes.
Yeah.
all the volunteers that are there, just like like constantly rotating cats for surgery and prepping them,
Mhm.
making sure they are fine. And I mean, it's just I think with everything in Houston, like with any of the rescue organizations, it really takes a village and
Yeah,
a
it's
whole
the
some
And
effort.
working together
Yes.
makes
Yeah.
us so more efficient.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a lot of work. If someone has not ever trapped a cat, I have. It is a lot of work.
Yeah.
I mean, it took me a whole day
Yep.
because it's and so I'm glad that you point out the people that kind of the nameless people that maybe don't get recognized, that do the trapping, that care for the
Mhm.
pets, that bring them in, pick them up, then care for their recovery,
Recovery.
and then release them. That is not a simple job. And when
No.
you multiply that by 60, 90, hundreds, thousands in a year, thank God for these tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of volunteers that care for Houston's stray dog and cat populations. Bless them, all of them.
Yes.
So, and thanks to you for bringing everybody
Yes.
together.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a really cool program, you guys. Really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, like it's. I mean, I think, like we said before, we're like small but mighty, and even with the transport, it's the same thing. Like you can think of, we're transporting, I don't know, like 50 cats or whatever, but
Yeah.
it really takes a lot of help just for sending those cats, either getting people to foster, or getting people to help us to do the bedding, the actual transport partners up north. So that's one of the things that I realized when I was working with. I guess my mode has always been like, work with any organization, because I just don't see that one organization or one shelter is going to make the difference.
Yeah.
It really comes down to people working together and just sometimes trying not to get too much involved into the, I want to do it this way. I think this is the right way.
Right.
I think at the end of the day, our mission is to save as many animals as we can.
Yeah, for sure.
Again, this is Conversations for the Animals. We're here with Team Feral, Keri and Carlos,
Tina Faust.
Tama. And so thank you guys for educating us on what you do, what Team Feral means, what TNR means, and how it's so important in our community. So what do you see as the future for the stray population of cats in Houston?
You want to take that?
I would like to see. Oh, that's such a big question.
It is.
I mean,
yes.
One thing, and I believe you guys already mentioned it, was we need some intervention and support from the top down.
Yeah.
We need some critical changes as far as policies in our community, availability of services for people. Because even if someone wants to help a cat right now, whether it's a stray or a feral, they do not necessarily have something to do that in the immediate moment, especially if it's someone that's not familiar with our rescue community. I would love to see more TNR programs, more accessibility for the public, more resources available, and more education available,
Yes.
so that we can reduce the stray population. We're going to have feral cats, but we can make their lives better. We can
Yeah.
make sure they're spayed and neutered and vaccinated. And I would just love to see the spay, neuter, and education happen across the board.
Fewer of them, yes. And,
Yes.
and we believe, like you do, that it's the responsibility of a city or a county. If you're going to have this entity, it's like taking out the trash or,
Yes.
removing the rubbish and filling potholes. It's just part of running a city and a county. So we have to work on that. And we know that we all are by speaking out about it. How busy are you? If I were to call you today and say, I've got a cat and it's not doing that well and it's in my backyard and I can't let my dogs out, and so this is a real hindrance to me. I've called both shelters, nobody picked up. Can you come out? Be honest, because we're talking about how
Yes.
the nonprofits are overwhelmed.
We are, and we're in the middle of kitten season.
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody's going to know what that is, but this is the time of year when all the babies are being born and the babies are having babies even. It's exploding, the cat population. So we are in the midst of kitten season. We see the youth lists that come through. We do not have a system in place where we can send a trapper out. Now, we will try to connect somebody with services. We will try to say, okay, where are you located? We may have a trapper here, or we may try to help. If it's you, I may try to help you locate a trap, teach you how to trap. Because where there's that one cat, there might be another cat.
Where do you get a trap?
You can order them online. I know some organizations have them available for rent.
Yeah. Like, for example, Texas TLC on the Texas Litter Control on the north side. They can actually land traps, or
That
they
is
can
great.
Yes.
they ask for like a little deposit that you can get back when you get
It's so
return the
worth
trap.
Mhm.
Like Keri said, you can get them online. I think they're like $50 or something like
Yes.
that.
So like get a trap.
And these are
then-
humane traps.
Yeah.
It's not like we use the ones that have that very soft close. No animals are getting hurt.
Yeah.
I do want to add that
Yes,
as
yeah,
well.
of course.
Yes.
Right.
But and if you reach out to a rescue group, I'm sure someone is associated and can help you connect with somebody who has a trap.
especially if
But once I get it in the trap, then what do I do? So I've got this little kitty in a trap. Now I can let my dogs out in the backyard.
Mhm.
Then where do I take it?
If we're going for TNR, we would have you either go to TLC where we have an account, or we would cover that spay neuter to get that kitty fixed.
Okay.
If kitty is friendly, and we're not talking about a feral,
Yeah.
that makes it a little more difficult. We need to locate a foster
Ah,
and ideally fundraise for vetting, because we're all in rescue and we all
Yeah.
know that this time of year especially, funds are
Yes.
tight.
What
Yeah,
is
and
the
to-
average cost of vetting a cat? Average.
So if you use one of the low cost clinics, probably like between $100 and $150. Depends if it's a male or a female. Now, if you go to a regular vet, you're probably gonna find a higher bill.
Mhm.
So that's why even though we like to help people, it's just like we were saying before. Like as a rescue organization, we cannot do this by
Yes.
ourselves. So when someone reaches out to us and asks for help, we try to partner with them and say, if you can help cover some of that bedding, we can probably it's going to be easier to help. If you can foster for a few weeks or months, you can probably help you. So we can probably find like a plan. So it's not like you're gonna be stuck with the cat for like months and you don't have any solutions. But so we try to like with all these finders to partner with them and say, if you can help us with part of the bedding, if you can help us to foster, we can probably help you faster.
Yeah.
If you want just to kind of drop off the cat to us, then the queue is longer.
it's not gonna be that day.
Yeah, no.
Right. And so that was what I was trying to get
Yeah.
to too. It's not if you find a cat today or a dog,
Mhm.
what do you do with it? We're in this industry. We struggle. What do we
Yes.
do with it? We don't have that resource where other cities I've lived,
You can take it to the shelter.
yeah,
We
Yeah.
don't have that
we don't
availability
have that.
right now.
I know.
And-
It's hard.
It's hard for people to tell them like, oh, hold on to that cat for me for 2 weeks.
Yeah. And I'm saying I've got a pit bull and
Mhm.
not that he wouldn't be friendly with it, but I sure would hate to try that out. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So yeah,
Yes.
it's difficult. Plus you don't know the diseases. When these cats are on the streets,
Mhm.
they're probably not being vetted. They probably don't have their shots.
Yes.
When you pick them up and spay or neuter them, do they get shots then?
Yes. Yes. We give them their vaccinations. We typically put
You
flea
get
medication
rabies.
on them.
Yeah.
We do our best to at least
That's
scoot
great.
them out the door with with
as
the good
much as you
thing.
can.
Yeah.
So good.
But like if you do find a cat and you do have the ability to hang on to it, and I assume this is very similar with dogs, cats especially, all you need is a bathroom or a closet, and just stick kitty in there until we can find a solution. Cats, like dogs, you would put them through the same quarantine period. If I took a dog off the street, I'm not going to put it with my pet dog
Mhm.
for 2 weeks at least until I can see if anything is going to pop and we have a vet visit.
Right.
Same thing with the cat. I would just say, if you find one and you can hold it, a bathroom, a closet, anything like that, just stick it in there and it's a 2-week quarantine. And we really want to do that to make sure any animal in the house is safe and protected from any possible diseases.
Yes. Yep. And adults too makes sense.
Yes.
Backing up just a little bit, we were talking about this being us needing help from the governments,
Mhm.
and something came to mind. Like, also, people need to get their pets inside. If that's kind of low hanging fruit, because we
Mhm.
had talked about years ago that if we were to go around and pick up all the dogs and the cats on the streets right now, we would wind up in this same position in a few years,
Yeah.
because people need to stop letting their cats roam. They need to stop letting their dogs roam. I mean, they're hurting each other.
Mhm.
They're breeding exponentially. And so that feels like the low hanging fruit in our community. Get. And when you go out into neighborhoods, do you talk to people? Do you recommend that they, take better care of their pets? And how is that received?
I would say we do when we talk to people that reach out, especially when people like reach out and say like I found this cat or I have this cat that I need shots or help to get bedding it. But yeah, like you said, I think that's probably the number thing that we say. Like, if you're gonna have a cat, just it has to be indoors.
Yeah.
Like, you just,
Yes.
there's no reason to have that cat roam outside. And even if when people say, "Oh, it's just because he likes to go outside," when we moved to our house, we had one feral stray cat that we brought with us, and it really took him maybe like 2-3 weeks to acclimate itself. So
Mhm.
he's now a totally indoor cat. So it's not a matter of like, oh, like they just need to get used to the routine and all that stuff. But as you mentioned, I think one of the main things that we really need in Houston is education on
Yes.
how to treat animals. They have to be indoors. They have to be, properly bedded.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think it's a holistic view. I do believe that, yeah, we do need some support from the government,
Yeah.
but also it needs to be also from the ground up.
Yes.
Like
Yep.
especially with schools or with kids, not to harm animals, not to take advantage of dogs or cats in the street. And yeah, I think there is no way that we're gonna get our way out, adopting out, transporting out. It really has to be a change in mentality.
Yeah.
Yes.
Change
Yes.
of the culture.
Right.
And that goes from the bottom up and the top down.
Yeah.
We've got leaders who aren't believing that this is a problem or looking at it like it's part of the responsibility of running a city. So yeah, it's definitely an issue.
Yeah, and it's just like with everything, right? Like it's a system. Like you see, like you mentioned, like you see dogs running on the street, so that becomes a danger to people living on the street. But then, I mean, I think it's people get overwhelmed by the problem, but then like I think we just need to start. The government on the side probably should just if they are not the experts, then reach out to the experts, which
Yeah,
are all these
exactly.
rescue organizations, and take some of that insight and knowledge that they have, and and try to disseminate that knowledge, creating like
Yes.
programs, creating like campaigns, or
We
I
need
don't-
citywide campaigns.
Yeah.
You guys aren't as old as we are, but in the early 70s, there was a no littering campaign, and it showed a gentleman alongside the road, and somebody threw out trash, and it hit his feet, and he was just standing there crying. And it changed like it was how many years ago, and I still remember it stayed with me. And it was
Yes.
an anti-littering campaign, Keep America Beautiful. And so we need those national campaigns. We
Mhm.
need them regionally, because we know it's far worse in the south than the north. But yeah, we've got to change the way people think and care about their
Yeah.
animals.
And then,
I
and then follow up with the resources,
Yes.
because
Right.
we know there are so many people who want to spay and neuter their animals. When we put word on Facebook about the mobile unit, we got over 6,000 requests in 3 weeks. Over 6,000 people, and that we didn't even advertise. That was just Facebook alone.
Mhm.
So we know that there's also some low-hanging fruit where people want this. They just want it affordable, and they want it in their neighborhoods, because they can't drive 50 miles to get this done and wait for 4 hours. They don't. It's
Not everybody in
possible.
Houston has
Right,
reliable
Exactly.
transportation
Yeah,
like that.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
When is your next your next spay neuter day?
This weekend.
this weekend, Sunday. What is it? The 3rd?
Sure.
The
No, the
5th?
5th.
The
Sorry.
5th.
Yeah.
6/5.
Yeah.
Great. And how many animals are lined up to be spayed and neutered that day?
I had to check the list, but we are targeting like 90, 100 again.
Congratulations.
Yay.
That's really
Yes.
great. And where do you do these events?
Houston Spay and Neuter.
Mhm.
They're in the Heights area, 1220 23rd Street.
Wow. So you just take over the clinic for the day and
Mhm.
bring
Yes.
everybody.
Dr. Hannah comes in special for us,
Wow.
and we
Yes.
take over the clinic, and all the volunteers come in. It's a huge,
Yeah.
huge team effort.
Yeah, some of your
Lisa
some
from
of your
our Houston
employees
Pet Set team
were
shows-
there on the last one, and they got to
Oh.
see firsthand like
We
the
heard
whole coordination. And
great
Congratulations.
things about it.
Yes. Yeah. If somebody wanted to donate to what you do, where would they do that? At at your website?
Yeah, so on our website we have a link tree, so you can do like PayPal, Zelle, Amazon, Chewy.
What's your web address?
www.teamferrell.org.
So www.teamferrell.org.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and we can give you the details
Sure.
if you're posting that.
Yeah, of course.
um,
Is there anything else you guys want to talk about or add?
no, I think overall, I think what you mentioned before, I think it's more on the education. There's a lot of people out there that they do want to do the right thing,
Mhm.
but they just don't know how.
Right.
Again, I put myself in the example. When I moved to Houston, I just didn't have no idea. I was not involved in rescue or
Yeah.
anything like that, so I didn't even know how to where BARC was or anything like that. So I think the more that we disseminate that information, we create those campaigns on
Right.
what to do, on how to treat your animals, how to keep them inside, and all these low cost opportunities. That's probably at least the first thing that it comes to my mind to try to get like real change.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
It's amazing how many people in rescue came from somewhere else.
Yeah.
You get here and you're like, oh my God, this is a mess.
Like, I have to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you for being
Thank
here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Keri and
Absolutely.
Carlos.
Thank you
Yeah.
for what you do for
Yeah.
our community.
Thank you for helping us do
Yeah.
it.
I'd love to partner on that
Yeah.
spay neuter all day, every day.
Yeah.
Go
Yes.
Team Feral.
Yeah.